Hey guys, if you're new to Daily Clout, I'm Iziah Thompson, and this is This Week in Congress, where we go over all the big time happenings on the Hill. We've got quite a lot to catch up on, so let's get started. The 2020 census has been garnering lots of attention lately, mostly because of plans to include a question on citizenship status. But you most likely didn't hear about another question being considered for the first time in history, a question about the sex of a person's spouse. Some argue that the federal government has no need to collect this information. Others argue that it's a step in the right direction in terms of recognition for same-sex couples. Now, moving on to the House bills this week. There are some really interesting things brought to the floor. I'll go over 4 of them that I think you're going to want to know about and share with people that you know. First off, the House passed H.R. 4681, the No Assistance for Assad Act. This bill will prohibit U.S. assistance for reconstruction and stabilization efforts in Syria from being available in areas controlled by the Assad regime. There's a caveat. If the Assad regime meets several conditions, including not attacking civilians and holding democratic elections, according to Congress, the president can authorize funds to that state. Next up is the H.R. 4744 Iran Human Rights and Hostage-Taking Accountability Act, which passed 410-2. This bill would impose property-blocking sanctions and visa prohibitions on Iranian officials and entities found to be responsible for human rights abuses, censorship, corruption, or taking U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents hostage, as determined by President Trump. It would state that it's a U.S. policy not to pay ransom to secure the release of hostages. The Secretary of State will be required to provide Congress with a strategy to put an end to Iranian hostage-taking, including attempting to extradite, try, and convict Iranian officials responsible. Next, the House unanimously passed H.R. 5447, the Music Modernization Act. This bill would update several provisions of the U.S. copyright law regarding music licensing. It does this by establishing a music licensing collective to license musical copyrights, collect and distribute royalties from digital music providers, and it also maintains a public database of compositions, who owns them, who wrote them, and who administers them. It would also require the payments of royalties to both right holders and artists for use in their recordings, which were made before 1972. Because currently, digital broadcasters don't pay royalties on songs recorded prior to 1972. Finally, the bill would enable record producers, sound engineers, and other creative professionals to receive compensation for their work when their recordings are used on satellite and online radio services. How this will work with the unwieldiness of the internet music scene has yet to be ironed out. But this is just the latest in bills working to regulate the internet that still seems seemingly confounding to legislators. If you watch the Zuckerberg hearing or some other debate surrounding the internet or net neutrality bill, you'll know what I mean. And finally, the House also passed H.R. 4, the Federal Aviation Administration Reauthorization Bill, by 393-13. The FAA is a Department of Transportation agency that regulates our airways. This bill allocates $4.35 billion to that agency. It'll move on to the Senate next and then to the President to sign. Now that we're done with the House, let's talk a little about the Senate. Senators spent the week confirming Trump's nominations. The Senate has confirmed a replacement for the former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who was abruptly fired via Twitter. The Senate voted to confirm Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State 57-42. Pompeo is definitely a controversial figure, being an ex-CIA director who was described by Senator Rand Paul as hawkish. On the Iran deal, Pompeo told reporters after a NATO meeting recently, absent a substantial fix, absent overcoming the shortcomings, the flaws of the deal, he's unlikely to stay in that deal past this May. And that was referring to President Trump. We'll definitely be following Pompeo closely. The Senate also voted to confirm Richard Grenell as ambassador to Germany. Confirmation vote on the nomination of Grenell to be ambassador was 56-42. The Senate also confirmed a federal courtship And that's really all they did this week. And that's all I've got this week. If you like this video, please like it, share it, and go to dailyclout.io to talk about these bills or any other ones that have interest to you. I'm Iziah Thompson. This is This Week in Congress, and I'll see you next week.